Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and I'm rocking the Shaman. I've slagged it off, I've hated it, I've given it so much abuse over Mr. Pandaria. I've slammed this thing into the fucking ground, but here I am. Gotta put it up for consideration for for Warlords of Draenor. I just can't count any class out at this point because changes are coming on the horizon. Who knows what's going to be great? We just can't think about it. And plus, you know what? It's fair. It's fair to give it a shout, replay it, revisit it. Because every time I've played it, I've always gone in with that attitude of, God. Drudgery, gotta play my Shaman again. That's the kind of attitude I went into some of my videos with over Mr. Pandaria, which isn't fair. Hey, I'll take the fucking blame, man. I will take it on the chin like a true champ and say, you know what? That was kind of a shitty thing to do. So I apologize if I've been overly harsh towards the Shaman and offended some of you. I kind of mocked some people over the past year. What can I say? Sometimes I feel a certain way. But I've re-rocked it. I've re-rocked it over the past... You know how long I gave this thing? Fucking week. A week of, like, play on and off, coming back, going forward, swapping specs, trying different things, just trying to get myself into the mind of a Shaman. I'm playing this as a main character is how I approach my selection process for Warlords of Draenor is, hey, this is my main character, I'm going to live it and breathe it, I'm going to rock some dailies, I'm going to do some questing, I'm going to do some raids, I'm going to do some dungeons, I'm just going to apply myself as if this was my only character. So I've done that with the Shaman. What are my conclusions? What are my thoughts? What are we looking at? First of all, let's really assess what's coming in Warlords of Draenor. We've seen that Celestalon has addressed the fact that, you know what, they have more fucking spells than they know what to do with, and a lot of them are pretty boring. Right? I would say probably the most boring one is things like Lightning Bolt. It's a filler spell for sure, but god, that thing's fucking boring compared to Lava Burst. Get the fuck out of here. Storm Strike needs revisiting because it's kind of pussy whipped now, right? We've got this big badass Lava Lash dropping bombs like it's his fucking job. And then you've got Storm Strike, where you slam them in the face with electricity and fucking both weapons right up the bastard asshole. And then it's just, it's like, yeah, kind of did a Storm Strike. And Resto, well, Resto's a mixed bag. Resto's a big old can of worms. It's a big mixed contribution of things. So far, all we've seen is that, yeah, we're going to bake a couple of things into together, but not much, which kind of leads me to believe that, you know, Blizzard's kind of happy with what the Shaman are doing right now and how they're playing. I disagree. I think they're very much lost in time, lost in space, and not really part of the new era. They keep to be dragging them, kicking and screaming, just to try and keep up. Instead of revamping and remodeling and saying, let's take a chance with this and do something incredible, they seem to be just like, you know what, we need to keep them balanced. You know, these are the spells people are used to. Let's kind of mishmash them together. Let's give them some new toys. We saw like Elemental Blast, which just looks like a, you know, a funky toothpaste spell, really, that's all multicolored. Unleash Fury. It's kind of okay, but it's situational. You know, that's one of the big drawbacks for me with the Shaman is its talent choices where it gets fun. The level 90 stuff seems to come with a bit of a drawback in some occasions. Primal Elementalist, where you're basically giving up the power and getting it to serve you and give you extra buffs, and then your pet's kind of like, you know, it looks cool, but it's kind of just got to buff me a little bit. Unleash Fury is like, yeah, it kind of affects a few things, but not everything. You know, it's all right. It's all right. I mean, if we look at just Wind Fury weapon for a moment, for 8 seconds, your melee attacks can trigger Static Shock. Static Shock's like a passive anyway. It's not even fun. It's like, what the fuck, man? I want something a little bit fun. Oh, my Lightning Bolt by 30% damage. Your Lava Burst by 10%. They're boring. They're boring. I think we can say that. Elemental Blast sounds really cool, but it's just not. It's just an extra spell that we just slap on the end of it. It's no different than a Glaive Toss. No hunter ever creamed his pants over Glaive Toss by any means. And certainly most Shaman didn't really, you know, cream their pants over the fact they got an Elemental Blast. There's some missed opportunities with the Shaman. I wish they'd take the ball and fucking run with this bastard. Because you know what? It controls the fucking elements. It controls the literal resources of the planet in order to get jobs done. And I want to see more of that. I want to see them say, what can we really do with a Shaman? It's a class that controls the elements. Where can we go with that? So we look at what the level 100 talents are. Again, a little bit boring. Nobody's really going, oh my god, that's amazing. The best thing we've seen is Storm Elemental Tone, which kind of says what I'm thinking, which is taking the idea of controlling elements and doing something cool with it. We're going to summon a greater Storm Elemental who we hope to God looks badass and isn't some kind of reused model. That would be a sad day. And now he's going to be throwing gusts of wind into the target. I like that. I like that because that's stand out. That's like, whoa, that guy over there is doing some fucking business. That guy over there is controlling the goddamn elements because he just summoned a giant storm elemental and he's throwing literal fucking whirlwinds at the boss. Cool. Lava spew totem? Not so much. It spews lava, globs of lava, which are just going to be little red balls, just random targets. Okay, so it's a little AoE spell. And also you've got things like High Tide. Your Chain Heal now bounces off all of your Riptides. It's good mechanically. Is it a hell of a lot of fun? Not so much. Is it not so much? It's just an extra button that we've got to press, and we're adding more buttons in, Blizz. Slowly come down, you know what I mean? Let's slow it. Let's do it. I mean, we're adding more buttons, and some of these are just passives. You know, every time you chain heal, it's going to bounce off it every night. It's a great ability. Don't get me wrong, this is a great ability. But what it's not is really a lot of fun. And that's kind of one of the things that really clunks me up when I play the Shaman is, yeah, I've got access to a ton of stuff. But most encounters don't allow me to do stuff with that. They don't allow me to really fucking take the ball and run with it. And Shaman become one of the most situationally awesome classes in the game, but only when Blizzard designs an encounter where the Shaman can do something impressive. And let's face facts, most of the time that's down to a Tremor Totem, right? That's down to the fact that we have the Tremor Totem. How can we possibly use that, Blizz says? Well, the only way we can use that is to drop some AoE fears, and that's about it. And then the raids are begging for it. The raids are like, we need some fucking Shaman up in this bitch. And then you're like, oh, cool. Tremor Totem again. All right. So that's one of my big drawbacks with it. No matter which spec I play, I feel like I have access to the biggest toolbox in the game. Easily. I have access to so many things that my spellbook abilities have drop-down menus. That's how much stuff I have available to me as a Shaman. And barely any of it is useful in a PvE scenario. And that really sucks. It really sucks. We have tacked on things like Stormlash Tome, which is obviously going away because it's just an extra button that sucks, really. It's great for what it does, but did we really need another totem? Can we not find ways of really manipulating the environment so Shamans have this little unique flavor and taste, instead of having a whole mass array of spells, which are all individually pretty cool? You can't really look through a Shaman's spellbook and go, you know what, that's not very cool. Because most of these things are. Healing Stream, very cool. Healing Tide, very cool. Thunderstorm, very cool. Earthquake, on the face of it, is a very, very cool spell. But so garbage in reality. And that's a bummer. Grounding Totem, Earthbind Totem, Earth Elementals. I've got totems coming out of my ass, Magma Totems. People can't even be asked moving to drop a Magma Totem, and then they have to debate, is it worth it? How long are these things going to live? Are they going to do anything? I have a totem with a tooltip that reads cause 2,000 fire damage to creatures, right? When I read that, I'm just like, ugh, gah. Boring. But I have all these amazing things, but they don't seem to have found their place in the game. Which is why I think they're just being sort of modified and tweaked to try and find their place. And then they throw something really super cool at us, like Ascendance. Remember when I was leveling in the MOP beta or early MOP to get my Shaman actually capped up, and people were just like, dude, Ascendance. Right, I get it. Ascendance is a super amazingly cool spell. It is. It's absolutely extraordinarily cool. It's up there with the Paladins. But we can't base a class around that. We can't base the entire fun of the classes around that, which many people did once they saw Ascendance. They were like, I'm rolling a Shaman. That's enough to get people gripped and hooked, but what's going to keep them there? It comes down to a personality of play. For me, I want to feel very, very useful. I only think I'm going to get that if I play Resto. Because Resto has access to so many cool things. Spiritling Totem is just easily the most powerful raid cooldown in the game. And then you've got Bloodlust on top of that. That's staying around. We're going to get to keep that in Warlords. So the Resto Shaman for me is the way to go. Unfortunately, I don't particularly want to play a healer. I don't like enhancement at all. When Blizzard tweets like they did last week, rocking out some knowledge like ramp up time is okay for AoE because once you ramp up, you're rolling. Tell that to the motherfuckers who've just blown all the AoE up. Right? Come on, Shaman. You know you're there with me. When we need to AoE, ramp up time is generally a pain in the ass, especially when there's other classes who do amazing AoE and have zero ramp up time. We even have to make that decision. Do we bother to AoE here? Is it worthwhile? No one should be in that situation. No one should ever have to consider, well, should I AoE here or is it going to die too quickly? Should I just single target while everybody else blows everything up? That's not a decision I want to make. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. An enhancement has a lot going for it. Like I say, I like the idea of the spells. On theory, they're fantastic. The storm striking, the lava lashing. Then relying on stacks and stuff, it kind of starts going, oh yeah, but it's kind of got this niggly little feel to it. People love it. Hey, I don't blame you, but I'm just trying to find out what I'd like to see change. I don't want to see ramp up time anymore. Ramp up time is a pain in the ass. If you're going to give me stuff to AoE, I want to start blowing it up as soon as it appears. What I don't want to do is start plotting and planning. Sure, it does create a nice skill cap. The problem is you're generally going to get beaten by those people who don't have that skill cap. They just don't, it just doesn't exist for them. They don't have that problem. They don't need a ridiculous planning and little bit of intricacy. While you might stand there proud because you've done the intricacy and you've done the little changes, you've got the preparation right, you got your ramp up time going really nice and early, and then you got to blowing things up and firing overing the hell out of the place. There's other classes who just popped to fucking AoE and just were like, yeah, whatever, dude. And they probably came out on top at the end of it as well, which is never cool. It's never cool to see that. So enhancement for me, not only is it clunky as balls with all the different buttons, but it's got attributes that even Blizzard's backing up as being fine that I just do not think are fine. And I don't see them changing in Warlords. They're going to keep it pretty much the same. Which leaves the old Elemental. My most played spec of the Shaman over Mr. Pandaria easily. The most played spec I've done over the last week. You know what it is about the Elemental Shaman? You know what it is? You pick it up, you slap it on, and it's got those things that you hear about, that your friends tell you about. The chain lightning, it's got, you know, it's got lava burst at critting, it's the ridiculous numbers. You're doing all these kind of crazy things. And yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's absolutely goddamn fantastic. You start doing it, you're blowing things up, and you know what? For me, though, and this is always down to personal opinion in this selection process, is after a couple of hours, I'm done with it. I'm kind of like, yeah, I get, yeah, chain lightning is very, very cool. But then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I've got a few mobs DPS. I just stand here pressing this one button, and that's pretty much my entire game. And I have all these procs, and I have all these other options. Like I said earlier, I have all these other tools in the tool belt. Well, frankly, it's just better to just press the one button. That makes me really fucking sad. Makes me really sad that I have all these other options just sitting around waiting for me. But realistically, you know, I just gotta press my one button, and that's actually the best way of going about this. And that then fucking that really drags the spec down for me. Drags it so far down that once the little buzz and the little cheer and the glimmer of love that comes from the spec when you pick it up and you start rocking it and you become ascendanced and you've got things like Elemental Mastery rocking for you and you're firing just consistent lava bursts to the face, to the face, to the face, the spectacle wears off and what you're left with is the core gameplay, and then the core gameplay is actually kind of stagnant. It's stagnant despite the spectacle that comes along with it. Kind of stagnates, and you're left with the relying on things like running lightning bolts, which is awesome. And then you hear that Blizzard's taking that away, and you get really sad. The biggest bone of contention, of course, with these alpha notes is the loss of running lightning bolt. I think that's kind of sad because it is very cool. I can't help but run around, same as I do on my Hunter. I can't help but just be constantly on the move, always looking for better positions, always looking for more things to do because I can. I can move and do things. I can get work done. I can put things down. I want to love it because this spec has so much potential. The class has so much potential. We wield the elements. Why don't we turn into a giant overloaded storm elemental ourselves? Lightning shooting out of our fucking ass in a huge AoE cone where we rise up and do stuff like that. There's lots of fun that can be had with this spec which will just eliminate that stagnation. The basics of the gameplay, fine. Keep them the same, right? Let's chop these buttons down a bit. I don't want to be rocking so many different notifications of what I need to do. I don't really want to be also managing my lava surge procs with my flame shock timings to then check my fulmination count. All that kind of stuff is kind of fun for a little while, but after a bit you just kind of lost in it because it's all a bit fidgety and fiddly. And there's a lot of things going on that need to be managed to make sure they work correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to suffer. You're just going to suffer. That's my thoughts on it. That's the big overhaul I've had over a week of testing with this bad boy. I know some of you guys love it, but I still think there's so much to be done here. So much that could be done to make this easily one of the best classes in the game because its basis, where it comes from, its roots, are awesome. It just doesn't seem to want to get there. It just seems to be tagging along with everybody else. I like to compare it to the Balanced Druid. The Balanced Druid took the premise of just Sun and Arcane and all this kind of stuff to really a new level when it came up with the idea of Eclipse, where it was managing both those processes to make them not boring, to make you make interesting decisions, about whether or not you wanted the power of the solar or you wanted the power of the lunar, and you wanted to abuse that and switch back and forth, and interesting decisions to be made about whether you're going to do that. Elemental shamans aren't too far away from the premise of druids in terms of how their magic works. Why don't we do something cool with it? Why don't we work towards fire and then we turn into a fire elemental, or we turn into an earth elemental because we work our way back, or a storm elemental if we're melee or something. There's lots of ideas there that could be done that make this class so fucking perb. Just not feeling it right now, guys. Just not feeling it. I don't think Warlords is going to be the one, but for those of you who love it, good news. Not a lot is changing. See you later, guys. Bye.